Oregon Trail, the Trails West, and the Donner Party. In this video, you will learn about the Trails West, the reasons why people moved west, who moved west, what life was like on the trails, women on the trails, and the connection to manifest destiny. You will learn about mountain men, Mormons, and the Donner Party, all in connection to the Trails West. This video is created by Sophie,
Rachel,
Hailey.
In the 19th century, many American settlers thought it was their right to move west and expand the United States of America. This belief was called manifest destiny. In order to travel west, pioneers took long and vigorous trails. Some of the main trails taken were the Old Spanish Trail, the California Trail, and the Santa Fe Trail, the Mormon Trail, and of course the Oregon Trail. In green, the Old Spanish Trail stretches from Santa Fe to Los Angeles, mostly in the New Mexico territory. The California Trail began at Fort Hall and ended in Sacramento, passing through Utah territory. The Santa Fe Trail began at Independence, Missouri, just like the Oregon Trail, but then traveled southwest to Santa Fe, mostly passing through unorganized territory. The Mormon Trail began at Nauvoo and ended in Salt Lake City, passing through mostly unorganized territory as well. Lastly, and one of the most recognized trails, is the Oregon Trail, which began at Independence, Missouri, and ended in the Oregon Territory as settlers claimed their own land. Settlers moved west for many reasons. The first people to cross the land were missionaries, like the Whitmans, who attempted to convert the native people of the land to their religion with very little success. Stories of the fertile land drew other people to discover the riches of the land that they could potentially offer. Some people wanted to make a profit off the cheap land available, and some people found their profits in trapping beavers for the fur pelts that would be sold to be made into fashionable hats. Profits weren't always on the settlers' minds, as you will see in the case of the Mormons. In 1847, over 1,000 Mormons traveled the Oregon Trail to Utah to practice their religion freely without oppression. Although religious freedom is one of the main beliefs of the United States, that didn't mean that everyone accepted it. Mormons were rejected from some people under the beliefs that some of their practices were immoral, mainly the practice of polygamy, or when a man is allowed to have more than one wife at a time. Mobs threatened the lives of the communities, and the Mormons finally moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. They worked extremely hard to turn the desert they moved to into a lush homeland, and they succeeded. Traveling the trails would have never been as attainable for the Mormons had the mountain men not established passes and key tricks to surviving in the Rockies. But who were the mountain men? Good question. Mountain men were the fur trappers and explorers living in the Rockies. They found and created many trails, making it easier for other travelers to pass through. Two famous mountain men were Jedediah Smith and Jim Beckwourth. Beckwourth's claim to fame was the discovery of a trail today called the Beckwourth Pass. He was originally born a slave, but was eventually freed and went to live on with the Crow people some years later. Jedediah Smith was famous for publicizing the South Pass, which was much more convenient than the North Pass, previously determined by Lewis and Clark. South Pass was much wider and less steep than North Pass. It also received less snow, making travel much easier. Life may have been easier for the settlers with a more established path, but the journey still contained many dangers. To minimize danger, some settlers joined wagon trains, where the members of the train would work together to increase their chance of survival. Not every party had all of the professional training to complete tasks necessary to survive, but they improvised and filled in with the most adequate for the job, and the problem was usually solved. Attacks from nature could turn deadly. Jedediah Smith was once attacked by a bear and had to stitch up his own wounds. Conditions were dangerous, and sometimes wagons caused broken limbs or slower travel. Diseases were also present and could leave children orphaned on the trail. Communities would work together and children could be cared for in another family. Starvation was also yet another danger while tackling the trails. was a case of a man by the name of Beckno, who was a trader that used to pass through a barren desert, causing him to run out of water. Desperate, he would resort to drinking the blood of the animals he had with him. He wasn't the only person to resort to this, as the Donner Party had encountered the same danger on the trail. The Donner Party was a wagon train group, Oregon-bound, led by George Donner and James F. Reed. Hoping to make a shortcut, George Donner led his entourage right into a terrible situation no traveler wants to face. His shortcut ended up adding even more days to the journey than what was originally intended, and the group was forced to camp out as heavy snowfall had blocked their chances to continue their path. The provisions soon ran out, and the group eventually had to resort to cannibalism in order to have even the slightest chance of survival. The corpses of the previously dead, and perhaps some murdered members, were consumed. Bodies were labeled so that the survivors wouldn't eat a relative as the fight for survival continued on. Some people were able to be rescued early on, and one person was left alive. Some bodies were never found. In the early explorations of the trails, women were heavily burdened with family care compared to the role of men. Women would wake up at 4 in the morning. They hauled food and water. They kindled fires, milked cows, and knead the dough. At night, they were expected to wash clothes, make dinner, fix beds and rooms, air out wagons to prevent mold, deal with needy children, and maybe be a midwife for other mothers on the trail. Later, demands began to blur the gender roles, as if survival was the most important task. Women started doing acts usually reserved for men of the house. They would drive horses, yoke cattle, and load wagons. Even the men began to cook and clean as the family struggled on westward. Manifest destiny is the belief of westward expansion in the United States. Trails assisted the idea of manifest destiny as it was how people moved to the west and learned to expand from. Mountain men created many trails, and the Mormons and entrepreneurs followed them in pursuit and in the name of manifest destiny.